I'm Amber Wilson, 28 years old, and 2 years into what I thought was a healthy relationship with Ryan, until that night in our apartment when everything changed, when the man who claimed to love me showed his true colors, insulting me while declaring he had the right to go anywhere and do anything. The irony, those same rules didn't apply to me. What he didn't expect was how his double standards would backfire spectacularly. Before I tell you how I finally stood up for myself, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever dealt with someone who thinks rules only apply to others. Ryan and I met at my college friend Jesse's housewarming party 2 years ago. I wasn't even planning to go that night. I had a deadline for a client's logo design the next morning, but Jesse insisted I needed to get out more. The moment I walked in, Ryan caught my eye. Tall with dark hair and confident blue eyes, he was telling an animated story that had everyone laughing. When our gazes met across the room, I felt that electric connection romance novels always talk about. "You must be Amber," he said later, approaching me with 2 glasses of wine. Jesse's told me about her talented graphic designer friend. His charm was effortless. We talked for hours that night, discovering shared interests in hiking, true crime documentaries, and a mutual love for spicy food. Ryan worked as a marketing executive at a growing tech company, and his ambition was attractive. He seemed genuinely interested in my freelance design work, asking thoughtful questions about my creative process. Our first date was at a hole-in-the-wall Thai restaurant. He knew about the kind with plastic chairs but authentic food that made your eyes water. I appreciated that he didn't try to impress me with some overpriced, pretentious place. He seemed real. The first 6 months were blissful. Weekend hikes in nearby state parks, cooking elaborate meals together, binge-watching shows until 2 a.m. I introduced him to my close-knit group of friends and they seemed to approve, especially Samantha, my best friend since high school, whose opinion I valued most. "He looks at you like you're the only person in the room," Samantha said after meeting him, "but don't lose yourself in this relationship, okay?" I laughed off her concern at the time. Looking back, I should have paid attention. The first red flag appeared so subtly I almost missed it. We were having dinner at my apartment when my phone chimed with a text. Ryan casually picked it up before I could. "Who's Michael?" he asked, his tone light but his eyes suddenly watchful. "A new client," I explained, reaching for my phone. "He needs branding for his startup." Ryan handed it back with a smile, but not before scrolling through the previous messages. "Just making sure he's really talking business," he said with a wink that was supposed to be playful but felt oddly possessive. I dismissed it as a one-off, but similar incidents followed. Questions about who I was meeting for coffee, comments about my male friends being too friendly, always delivered with that same smile that made it difficult to call out the behavior without seeming oversensitive. After our 1-year anniversary, a weekend getaway to a beachside rental, Ryan suggested we move in together. His apartment was closer to the city center where most of his clients were based, and he argued it made more financial sense than maintaining 2 places. The practical side of me agreed, though a quiet voice whispered caution. Once we shared a space, the dynamics of our relationship shifted subtly. Ryan's position as a senior marketing executive came with perks: networking events, client dinners, and industry parties. He'd come home late, loosened tie and the faint scent of expensive whiskey clinging to him, full of stories about important connections he'd made. Meanwhile, my work-from-home routine seemed increasingly mundane by comparison. Ryan never explicitly said it, but his tone when discussing my little projects versus his career-building opportunities created a hierarchy in our relationship I hadn't signed up for. His friend group consisted mainly of other executives and business types, men with expensive watches and women in power suits. At gatherings, they'd discuss market trends and company acquisitions while I smiled politely, feeling increasingly out of place. When I tried bringing Samantha or my other friends around, Ryan would become strangely distant, later commenting they weren't really his vibe. Gradually, I found myself declining invitations from my own friends to accommodate Ryan's schedule and preferences. Samantha's texts went from daily to weekly as I became absorbed in Ryan's world. I told myself this was natural in a serious relationship. Some adjustments were expected. Right. Our apartment became a reflection of our evolving dynamic. My colorful art prints and bohemian accessories were relegated to my home office, while the main living spaces showcased Ryan's preference for minimalist modern decor. Each concession seemed small in isolation, but together they painted a picture I wasn't ready to acknowledge. By our 18-month mark, I'd become accustomed to checking in before making plans, while Ryan would simply inform me of his meeting clients tonight, don't wait up, or drinks with the team, might crash at Dave's if it goes late, not asking permission, just stating facts. I convinced myself this was fine. After all, I trusted him, and his career was demanding. What I didn't realize then was how methodically the ground beneath my feet was shifting, how the relationship that once felt like soaring freedom had transformed into a carefully constructed cage. It was a Wednesday evening when Samantha called with news that would inadvertently set everything in motion. Amber, I got tickets to the Aurora Jackson concert next Friday, front row access and VIP after party. Please tell me you're coming, the whole crew will be there. I haven't seen you in ages. Aurora Jackson was my favorite artist, and tickets to her shows were nearly impossible to get. A surge of excitement rushed through me, followed immediately by an automatic mental calculation of whether this would conflict with any of Ryan's potential plans. Let me check with Ryan first, I heard myself saying. Samantha's pause spoke volumes. When did you start needing permission slips? She asked, only half joking. Her comment stung because it contained a truth I wasn't ready to face. It's not like that, I defended. I just want to make sure we don't have anything planned. But her words lingered as I ended the call. Since when did I need Ryan's approval for a night out with friends? That evening I prepared Ryan's favorite pasta dish and waited until he seemed relaxed before bringing up the concert. So Samantha got tickets to Aurora Jackson next Friday, I said, trying to sound casual while loading the dishwasher. The girls are making it a night out. It's been forever since I've seen everyone. Ryan looked up from his phone, his expression immediately shifting. Next Friday, I thought we were having dinner with my boss and his wife. I frowned, mentally reviewing our calendar. You never mentioned any dinner. I told you about it last week, he insisted, though I had no recollection of this. It's pretty important for my promotion, but hey, if Aurora whatever is more important than my career. That's not fair, I said, feeling the familiar twist of guilt in my stomach. I wouldn't have asked if I'd known about your dinner, and her name is Aurora Jackson. I've played her music hundreds of times. Ryan sighed dramatically. Right, the singer with the blue hair. Pink, I corrected, frustration building. Whatever, look, I need to make a good impression with the higher-ups. I thought you'd want to support me. He returned to scrolling through his phone as if the matter was settled. But something inside me resisted. Perhaps it was Samantha's comment, or the accumulation of too many surrendered plans. I haven't seen my friends in months, Ryan. This concert means a lot to me. He looked up, surprise crossing his features at my persistence. Are you seriously putting a concert above my career dinner? There was no dinner on our calendar, I repeated, pulling out my phone to check our shared digital calendar. See, nothing scheduled. Not everything makes it onto the calendar, Amber. His tone had that edge now, the one that made me feel like I was being unreasonable. I mention things to you and expect you to remember them, like I remember your stuff. What stuff of mine have you remembered lately? The question escaped before I could filter it. Ryan's expression darkened. Is that what this is about? You feeling neglected? Because I've been working 60-hour weeks to build a future for us? This isn't about feeling neglected, it's about having my own life too. He stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. You know what? Fine, go to your concert, have your girls' night out. I'll tell Richard you had a prior commitment more important than meeting the man who decides my professional future. Ryan, that's not... No, it's fine. I have the right to go anywhere and do anything for my career. I don't ask your permission when I need to network or entertain clients, but clearly you need some space, so take it. His words dripped with condescension. I don't need your permission, I said quietly. Excuse me? I said I don't need your permission to see my friends. My heart was pounding, but I held my ground. Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it, right? Because hanging out with Samantha and those other girls who barely have careers is the same as what I do. He shook his head. You know what your problem is, Amber. You don't understand what it takes to succeed. Some of us can't just doodle pretty pictures and call it a day. The insult hit like a slap. My design work wasn't a hobby, it was my profession, my passion. I'd built a client base from scratch, earned industry recognition, but in Ryan's eyes, it would never measure up to his corporate climbing. Maybe you should go, he continued, voice suddenly calm and reasonable, as if he was the adult handling a child's tantrum. It might be good for you to remember what it's like out there. Just don't be surprised if guys get the wrong idea when they see a group of single-looking women at a concert. My friends aren't all single, and even if they were. I'm just saying, he interrupted, there are expectations when women go out drinking without their partners. Not from me, he added quickly, hands raised in mock surrender. I trust you. I'm talking about other guys. But hey, I'm sure you'll be careful, and I'll handle the dinner alone. No big deal. Just like that, he'd twisted everything. My excitement about the concert was now tangled with guilt. his permission granted in a way that made me feel both childish for wanting to go and somehow responsible for potentially damaging his career. Still, I wasn't ready to back down. "I'm going to the concert," I stated firmly. "Like I said, fine by me," Ryan shrugged and walked toward our bedroom, conversation apparently over. As I finished cleaning the kitchen alone, my phone buzzed with a text from Samantha. "Well, are you in for Aurora?" I typed back yes with shaking fingers, feeling both liberated and anxious. The night of the concert arrived and the tension in our apartment was palpable. Ryan had barely spoken to me all week, his silence a more effective guilt trip than any words could be. As I applied my makeup, something I rarely did anymore, he watched from the doorway. "You're really going all out," he commented, his tone impossible to read. "It's a special night," I replied, carefully applying eyeliner. "I told you how much I love Aurora's music." "Right," he leaned against the doorframe. "What time will you be back?" "I'm not sure. The concert ends at 11, but there's that after party. I might stay at Samantha's if it gets too late." I'd already mentioned this possibility earlier in the week. "Overnight? That's new." His eyebrows raised slightly. "It's not new. I used to stay at Sam's all the time before." I trailed off, not wanting to say "before you." "Before what, Amber?" "Before you had an adult relationship with responsibilities." He pushed off from the doorframe, irritation visible now. "Whatever, stay out all night if you want. Just keep your phone charged so I know you're safe." His concern would have seemed sweet to outsiders, but I recognized the underlying expectation I would be required to check in regularly to prove my whereabouts. Still, I nodded agreement, wanting to avoid further conflict before my night out. The concert was everything I'd hoped for. Roar's powerful voice, the energy of the crowd, the pure joy of singing along with thousands of fans, and most importantly, the feeling of reconnection with friends I'd neglected. But Ryan's presence hovered like a shadow, manifesting in text messages that grew increasingly frequent as the night progressed. 8:32 p.m. How's the concert? 9:17 p.m. Richard asked about you at dinner, told him you weren't feeling well. 10:05 p.m. Who all is at this thing anyway? 10:46 p.m. You haven't responded in a while. 11:23 p.m. Hello? 11:24 p.m. Are you ignoring me? 11:36 p.m. It would be nice to know if my girlfriend is alive. The texts continued through the VIP after party, each one pulling me out of the moment, requiring reassurance and explanation. By the time Samantha drove us back to her apartment for our planned sleepover, my temporary escape had lost much of its shine. "You've been on your phone all night," Samantha observed as we changed into pajamas. "Let me guess, Ryan." I nodded, showing her the latest message demanding to know exactly when I'd be home tomorrow. Samantha sat beside me on her guest bed. "Amber, I need to ask you something, and I want you to really think before answering. Are you happy? Because from the outside, this relationship looks controlling." "It's not controlling," I said automatically. "He just worries." "Does he worry when he goes out? Do you blow up his phone demanding updates?" I couldn't meet her eyes. We both knew the answer. When I returned home the next morning, Ryan was sitting at the kitchen island, scrolling through his phone as if he hadn't been obsessively contacting me all night. His greeting was cold, distant punishment for my night of independence. "Have fun?" he asked without looking up. "Yes," I answered truthfully. "The concert was amazing." "Great." He finally glanced at me, expression unreadable. "Well, dinner with Richard went fine. Thanks for asking. He only mentioned your absence 3 times. The guilt trip was predictable, but I refused to take the bait. "I'm glad it went well," I said simply. Ryan watched me, seemingly disappointed I hadn't apologized or shown more remorse. After an uncomfortable silence, he stood. "I'm meeting the guys for golf. Don't wait up for dinner." And just like that, he was gone, exercising his right to go anywhere and do anything, while I was made to feel selfish for having done the same. The double standard couldn't have been clearer, but it would take several more painful lessons before I found the courage to confront it. The weeks following the concert revealed a pattern that had always existed but now seemed glaringly obvious. Ryan's hypocrisy played out like clockwork, each incident building upon the last until it became impossible to ignore. The Thursday after my girls' night, Ryan casually mentioned over breakfast that he'd be meeting colleagues for drinks after work. "Don't wait up," he said, dropping a kiss on my forehead as he grabbed his keys. "These networking things can run late." He returned at 1 a.m., loosened tie and the scent of expensive whiskey announcing his arrival before he stumbled into our bedroom. When I asked how it went, his answer was vague. Good, made some connections before he fell into bed fully clothed. The following week brought a last-minute client dinner that kept him out until midnight. Then came a spontaneous happy hour that extended into the early morning. Each time, my questions were met with the same response: it's work, Amber. This is what building a career looks like. The double standard crystallized on a Saturday morning when Ryan announced he'd been invited on a guy's weekend to a lake house owned by his colleague Dave. "When are you leaving?" I asked, looking up from my laptop where I was finishing a deadline project. "In about an hour," he replied casually, already packing a duffel bag. "Dave just called. His divorce finally went through, so we're celebrating his freedom." He chuckled as if divorce was amusing rather than devastating. I set my laptop aside. "You're leaving for the weekend in an hour and you're just telling me now? What's the problem? You've got work anyway." He gestured toward my laptop. "And it's not like you need to prepare anything for me." "That's not the point, Ryan. It's about consideration. Remember how you reacted when I wanted to go to one concert?" His expression hardened. "That was completely different. You knew I had that dinner with my boss." "I didn't know because you never actually told me," I countered, just like I didn't know about this lake house trip until right now. "Jesus, Amber, do I need to file a formal request every time I want to see my friends? I thought we were past this controlling behavior." The audacity of him calling me controlling left me momentarily speechless. By the time I gathered my thoughts, he had zipped his bag and was heading for the door. "We need to talk about this when you get back," I said firmly. "Sure thing," he replied dismissively. "Try to have some fun while I'm gone, okay? Maybe call Samantha." He shut the door behind him before I could respond. Throughout the weekend, communication was entirely on his terms. A few sporadic texts, no specifics about their activities, and vague responses to my messages. When I called Saturday night, the background noise of music and female voices made it clear they weren't having a quiet guy's retreat. But questioning him only led to accusations that I didn't trust him. The most revealing incident came the following Wednesday. I'd borrowed Ryan's iPad to watch a design tutorial while he showered. When a message notification appeared, I instinctively glanced at it, a habit I'd picked up from Ryan himself, who never hesitated to check my notifications. The message was from Dave. "Dude, delete those lake house pics from your phone before Amber sees them. Jessica asking about her earring she lost in your room was bad enough." My stomach dropped. Jessica, a woman, had been in Ryan's room at the lake house, lost an earring there. Before I could process this, I heard the shower turn off. I quickly set the iPad down, mind racing. Over dinner, I casually asked about the lake house weekend. "So was it just you guys, or did Dave invite other people too?" Ryan shrugged, twirling pasta on his fork. "Just the guys." "Why?" The light came so easily to him. I considered confronting him with the message I'd seen but decided to gather more information first. "No reason, just wondering if I should host a girls' weekend sometime. Maybe invite some coworkers you haven't met." Ryan's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Female coworkers? To stay overnight here?" "Sure," I said lightly. "Why not?" "Because it's different," he said flatly. "Guys hanging out is just guys hanging out. When women have male guests overnight, it sends a message." "What kind of message is that exactly?" I asked, my voice deceptively calm. "You know exactly what I'm talking about, Amber. Don't be naive." "Actually, I don't. Please explain it to me." Ryan set down his fork with obvious irritation. "Look, I'm not having this conversation. There are different standards for men and women. That's just reality." "Different standards," I repeated, "like how you can check my phone anytime but your phone is password protected? That kind of different standard?" His eyes narrowed. "Are you spying on me now?" "No, Ryan, unlike you, I respect privacy. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy." He pushed back from the table. "I'm not doing this right now. I have a presentation to prepare for tomorrow." He stalked to his home office. Conversation effectively terminated. Later that evening, I called Samantha from the balcony where Ryan couldn't overhear. "It's getting worse, Sam," I admitted after explaining the lake house situation. "The double standards, the lies, the way he dismisses my concerns. I feel like I'm losing my mind sometimes." "You're not losing your mind," Samantha said firmly. "This is textbook manipulation, Amber. He's gaslighting you." Gaslighting? The term was vaguely familiar, but I'd never applied it to my own situation. "Making you question your own reality. He does something wrong, then makes you feel crazy for being upset about it. Meanwhile, he holds you to impossible standards he'd never accept for himself." Her voice softened. "Honey, this isn't healthy. It's emotional abuse." The word abuse hit me like a physical blow. I'd always associated abuse with shouting or violence, not this subtle erosion of self-worth and autonomy, but Samantha's words resonated with the truth I'd been avoiding. "I still love him," I whispered, tears welling up. "I know you do, but loving someone who treats you this way is like repeatedly touching a hot stove and hoping it won't burn you this time. You deserve better, Amber." After we hung up, I stayed on the balcony for hours, reflecting on our relationship. Had there been signs from the beginning? Were there moments I could have established healthier boundaries? The more I thought about it, the more examples surfaced of Ryan's controlling behavior masked as concern. That night I began researching emotional manipulation tactics. Each article I read felt like someone had been observing my relationship and documenting it in clinical terms: isolation from support networks, double standards, gaslighting, dismissing concerns, shifting blame. The breaking point came the following weekend at a dinner party hosted by Ryan's colleague. I was sharing an anecdote about a challenging client when Ryan interrupted with a laugh. "Amber exaggerates these stories," he told the group dismissively. "Her difficult clients are usually just people with reasonable expectations she doesn't want to meet." The table fell awkwardly silent. I felt heat rise to my face, not from embarrassment, but from anger. "Actually," I said clearly, "this particular client wanted me to copy another designer's work, which would be both unethical and illegal. But thank you for the professional assessment, Ryan." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dave's new girlfriend changed the subject, and conversation resumed. But something had shifted. For the first time, I'd publicly challenged Ryan's narrative about me, and the ground beneath our relationship trembled in response. As we drove home in silence, I realized the woman I'd been before meeting Ryan, confident, independent, creative, was still inside me, waiting to break free from the constraints that had been so carefully, systematically placed around her. The revelation about Ryan's lake house trip planted a seed of suspicion I couldn't ignore. Who was Jessica, and why was she in Ryan's room? The rational part of me wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation, but Ryan's outright lie when I'd asked about other people being there shattered that possibility. My graphic design work suffered as my mind constantly drifted to worst-case scenarios. After missing a deadline for the first time in my career, I knew I needed to address the situation directly. I couldn't continue in this limbo of suspicion and doubt. On a Thursday evening, I decided to confront Ryan. I'd prepared what I wanted to say, practicing in my head throughout the day to stay calm and focused. But when he arrived home nearly 2 hours later than usual, his collar rumpled and the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his jacket, my carefully rehearsed speech evaporated. "Where have you been?" I asked as he set his keys on the entry table. "Work, obviously," he replied, not meeting my eyes. "The Henderson account is a mess. We had an emergency strategy session." "Until 9 p.m.? You couldn't text?" He sighed dramatically. "Are we really going to do this right now, Amber? I'm exhausted." "Yes, we are," I said firmly, standing my ground, "because I know you're lying." His head snapped up, I suddenly alert despite his claimed exhaustion. "Excuse me. I saw Dave's message on your iPad about the lake house, about Jessica losing an earring in your room." The words tumbled out before I could measure them. "And now you come home late smelling like someone else's perfume." Ryan's expression shifted from surprise to anger to a calculated neutrality within seconds. "So you are spying on me, going through my private messages. Nice, Amber, real trustworthy behavior." "The message popped up while I was using the iPad you gave me permission to use," I clarified. "And you're deflecting. Who is Jessica?" "She's Dave's sister," Ryan said without hesitation. "She came by the lake house to drop off some food. She probably came into my room when we were touring the place. It's not a big deal." The explanation came too quickly, too smoothly. "If it wasn't a big deal, why did Dave tell you to delete the photos? And why did you lie about no one else being there?" "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this." His voice rose. "Look at yourself, Amber, creating this whole conspiracy theory because of one message you misinterpreted. This is why I can't be completely open with you. You twist everything." "I'm twisting things." I felt my voice quaver. "You explicitly told me it was just the guys at the lake house." "It was just the guys. Jessica stopped by briefly. She wasn't staying there." "Jesus, what do you want from me?" He ran his hands through his hair in exasperation. "This paranoia is getting out of control." "Then show me your phone," I said suddenly. "If there's nothing to hide, show me the lake house pictures." Ryan's expression darkened. "I don't have to prove anything to you. The fact that you're demanding to see my private phone shows how toxic you've become." "Toxic?" I repeated incredulously. "You check my phone all the time. You go through my texts, my emails, you even comment on them." "That's different," he snapped. How is it different?" "Because I don't have anything to hide." He was shouting now. "You're acting crazy, Amber. This isn't you. Maybe you should talk to someone professional about these trust issues." His attempt to pathologize my completely rational concerns struck me like a physical blow. "My only issue is that my boyfriend is clearly lying to me." "This conversation is going nowhere," Ryan declared. walking toward our bedroom. I'm not engaging with you when you're like this. I followed him. When I'm like what? Asking for basic honesty? Expecting the same transparency you demand from me? Ryan whirled around, his face inches from mine. You know what your problem is, Amber? You're too insecure to be in a relationship with someone like me. I have a demanding career. I interact with intelligent, ambitious people every day. Meanwhile, you work from home in your pajamas designing logos for startups that will probably fail within a year. His words cut deep, targeting my professional identity, something I'd always taken pride in despite his subtle undermining. But it was the casual cruelty, the calculated way he'd shifted from defensive to offensive, that finally opened my eyes completely. Get out, I whispered. What? He seemed genuinely surprised. Get out of our bedroom, sleep on the couch, or don't go stay with Jessica for all I care. Just get out. For a moment, Ryan looked shocked that his usual tactics hadn't worked. Then his expression hardened. Fine, we both need to cool down anyway. You're clearly not thinking rationally right now. After he left, I locked the bedroom door, something I'd never done before, and sank to the floor, my back against the bed. Tears came in violent, heaving sobs that I muffled with a pillow, not wanting to give Ryan the satisfaction of hearing my breakdown. When the tears finally subsided, I found myself curled on the bathroom floor, staring at my reflection in the cabinet mirror. I hardly recognized the woman looking back at me, eyes swollen, complexion pale, a deep crease between my brows that hadn't been there 2 years ago. When had I become this person, this shadow of myself, twisted into constant anxiety about saying or doing the wrong thing? My phone lit up with a text, not from Ryan but from Samantha, checking on you. Everything okay? I hadn't spoken to her in days, consumed by my suspicions and relationship trauma. The simple act of concern from a friend who truly cared about my well-being broke something open inside me. I called her immediately. Sam, I managed before my voice cracked. I need help. 20 minutes later, Samantha was at my door. I let her in quietly, aware that Ryan was somewhere in the apartment, though I couldn't see or hear him. Pack a bag, she whispered, taking in my tear-stained face. You're staying with me tonight. I can't just leave, I protested weakly. Yes, you can and you will. Her tone left no room for argument. Whatever happened tonight, you need space to think clearly. You can't do that with him hovering around, manipulating every conversation. As if summoned by our whispers, Ryan appeared in the hallway. Samantha, he said coolly, it's nearly midnight. This isn't really a good time for visitors. I'm not visiting, Samantha replied, her voice steady. I'm helping Amber pack a bag. She's staying with me tonight. Ryan's expression shifted to concern, so convincing it would have fooled me just hours earlier. Amber, honey, let's talk about this. Whatever you're upset about, running away isn't the solution. I'm not running away, I said, finding strength in Samantha's presence. I'm giving myself space to think. To think, he laughed incredulously, or to let Samantha poison you against me even more. We all know she's never approved of our relationship. Don't do that, I said, recognizing the tactic of turning Samantha into the enemy. This is about us, not her. If it's about us, then let's talk privately, like adults. He shot Samantha a pointed look. We tried talking. You called me crazy and insulted my career. I reminded him. I'm done talking for tonight. Ryan's facade of concern cracked, revealing the anger beneath. Fine, go have your little sleep, whore. We'll see if Samantha's couch is as comfortable as the life I've provided for you. The comment implying I should be grateful for the basics of shelter crystallized everything wrong with our relationship. I wordlessly continued packing a small overnight bag while Samantha stood guard. As we left, Ryan called after us, this is ridiculous, Amber. You're overreacting as usual. In Samantha's car, the weight of the evening crashed over me. What am I doing? I whispered, panic rising. That's my home, my relationship. That's not a relationship, Samantha said gently as she drove. It's a prison, and tonight you just found a key. At Samantha's apartment, over mugs of tea that grew cold as we talked into the early hours, I poured out everything: the controlling behavior, the double standards, the lies, and the way Ryan made me question my own perceptions. Samantha listened without interruption, only occasionally wiping away my tears or her own. I think I've been in denial, I finally admitted as dawnlight began filtering through her curtains. I kept making excuses for him because facing the truth meant acknowledging I've wasted 2 years of my life. Not wasted, Samantha corrected. You've learned something invaluable about what you won't accept in a relationship. That's never wasted time. As exhaustion finally overcame me, I curled up on Samantha's couch under a soft blanket she's provided. For the first time in months, despite the heartbreak and uncertainty, I felt something unexpected: peace. The constant anxiety of walking on eggshells around Ryan's moods had lifted, if only temporarily. My last thought before drifting into sleep was a question that would guide my next steps. What would the old Amber, the confident, independent woman I used to be, do now? The next morning, Ryan's texts began at 6 a.m. I hope you've calmed down and are ready to talk like adults. This silent treatment is childish, Amber. I deserve better than this after everything I've done for you. By noon, his tone had shifted from accusatory to conciliatory. I miss you. The apartment feels empty without you. Maybe I overreacted last night. Work has been stressful. Come home so we can work this out. The old Amber would have responded immediately, rushing home to smooth things over and accept whatever partial apology Ryan offered, but something had changed during that night at Samantha Ress. The fog of manipulation had begun to lift, and I saw his messages for what they were: attempts to regain control. I spent the weekend at Samantha Ress, using the distance to gain clarity. On Sunday evening, I finally responded to Ryan, I'll be home tomorrow after work, we can talk then. His reply came instantly, why not tonight? Don't you think you've dragged this out long enough? Even through text, his impatience to reassert control was palpable. I didn't respond. When I returned to our apartment Monday evening, Ryan had orchestrated the perfect reconciliation scene: my favorite takeout on the table, candles lit, even a small bouquet of flowers. His expression was contrite, his voice gentle as he embraced me. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, he began as we sat down to eat. I shouldn't have said those things about your career. I was tired and frustrated, but that's no excuse. The apology sounded perfect on the surface, but I noticed what was missing: any acknowledgement of the lies about the lake house, the double standards, or the pattern of controlling behavior. This was a strategic concession designed to close the subject without addressing the real issues. In the past, I would have accepted this partial apology gratefully, so relieved to end the conflict that I'd ignore the unresolved problems. Not this time. Thank you for apologizing for the career comments, I said carefully, but that's not the only issue we need to discuss. Ryan's smile tightened slightly. I thought we could just enjoy dinner tonight and put this behind us, start fresh, you know. We can't start fresh without addressing what went wrong, I countered. I need to know who Jessica is and why Dave told you to delete photos from the lake house. His expression darkened momentarily before he controlled it. I told you, she's Dave's sister. The photos were just group shots from the weekend. Dave was being paranoid because he knows how you can overreact. The explanation still didn't ring true, but I decided to take a different approach. Okay, show me the photos. What? The lake house photos, show them to me. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. I deleted them, like Dave suggested, precisely to avoid this kind of interrogation. Convenient, I remarked, so there's no way to verify your story. The fact that you need verification is exactly the problem, Amber. Relationships are built on trust. Trust works both ways, I pointed out. You check my phone regularly, you question who I'm meeting and where I'm going, but I'm supposed to just take your word for everything. The conversation continued in circles, with Ryan alternating between defensive accusations and attempts to change the subject. By the end of the evening, nothing was resolved. But I'd made an important discovery: Ryan had no intention of addressing the real issues or changing his behavior. He simply wanted to restore the status quo where he maintained control. Over the next few days, I pretended everything was back to normal. I smiled at his jokes, prepared meals together, and responded appropriately to his affection. On the surface, we were the same couple as before, but internally I was making plans. First, I opened a separate bank account and began transferring small amounts from my freelance earnings, nothing large enough to raise suspicion if Ryan checked our shared accounts, but enough to create a safety net. Next, I discreetly met with our landlord while Ryan was at work, explaining that I needed to understand my options regarding our lease. The sympathetic older woman informed me that since both our names were on the lease, either of us could remove ourselves with 30 days' notice, leaving the other person responsible for the full rent or finding a new roommate. I scheduled a consultation with a financial advisor to understand how to disentangle our shared expenses and credit cards with minimal damage to my credit score. Each small step built my confidence and reinforced that independence was not only possible but within reach. The most crucial part of my plan came when Ryan announced another weekend trip with his colleagues. Dave's planning a golf weekend, he mentioned casually over dinner, leaving Friday after work, back Sunday evening. Sounds fun, I replied with practiced nonchalance. Where are you playing? Some resort about 2 hours north, Meterbook or something. Dave's handling the details. He studied my face. You're okay with me going? The question was a test, After our recent conflict, he expected resistance that he could then label as controlling behavior, turning the tables to position himself as the victim. Instead, I smiled. Of course, you should enjoy time with your friends. He looked almost disappointed at being denied the opportunity for conflict. Great, I'll text you the details once Dave confirms everything. The moment Ryan left that Friday afternoon, I put my plan into action. Before he's even mentioned the trip, I'd purchased a small Gibbs tracker and slipped it into the inner pocket of his golf bag. Not the most ethical move, I acknowledged, but necessary to discover the truth. Once his location showed him well out of the city, I opened his iPad with the password I'd seen him enter countless times. There in his email, I found confirmation of a reservation not at a golf resort, but at an upscale hotel downtown, less than 15 minutes from our apartment. With shaking hands, I noted the hotel name and room number from the confirmation. Then I carefully restored the iPad to exactly how I'd found it, leaving no digital footprints of my investigation. Saturday evening, dressed inconspicuously in jeans, a baseball cap, and sunglasses, I drove to the hotel. The tracker showed Ryan's golf bag had been stationary at this location since yesterday afternoon. No golf resort, no 2 hours north, just another lie. I sat in my car in the hotel parking lot, stomach churning with anxiety. Part of me wanted to storm in and confront him. Another part wanted to drive away and pretend I'd never discovered the truth. Instead, I waited. At 7:48 p.m., Ryan emerged from the hotel entrance and he wasn't alone. A woman with long dark hair walked beside him, his hand resting intimately on her lower back as he guided her toward the valet stand. Even from a distance, their body language conveyed a familiarity that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. I lifted my phone and took several clear photos as they waited for their car, laughing together, completely at ease. When Ryan leaned down to kiss her, I captured that moment too, my hand trembling but the image unmistakable. Rather than confront them, I drove home, a strange calm replacing the anxiety I'd felt earlier. The photos on my phone weren't just evidence of Ryan's infidelity, they were my liberation. The last threads of doubt and self-blame had been severed. This wasn't about my trust issues or overreactions. This was about Ryan's deliberate deception and betrayal. Back at our apartment, I didn't cry or rage. Instead, I began making preparations. I contacted friends with spare rooms, researched affordable apartments, and calculated my budget as a single person. I boxed up my most essential belongings and important documents, storing them in my car trunk where Ryan wouldn't notice. When he returned Sunday evening, tanned and relaxed from his supposed golf weekend, I greeted him with the same pretend normalcy I'd maintained for weeks. "How was golf?" I asked as he unpacked his bag. "Great," he replied easily. "Dave destroyed us all on the back nine. You should see his drive, it's ridiculous." I nodded, marveling at how effortlessly he lied. "Sounds like you had perfect weather for it." "Couldn't have been better," he agreed, completely unaware that I knew the truth and that his days of controlling and deceiving me were numbered. For the first time in our relationship, I held the power, not power to control him as he had tried to control me, but the power of knowledge, truth, and the determination to reclaim my independence. As I watched him continue to spin his fictional golf weekend tale, I felt not anger but pity for a man so insecure that he needed to construct elaborate deceptions and manipulations to feel powerful. Ryan had claimed he had the right to go anywhere and do anything. Soon I would exercise that same right, walking away from his web of lies toward a future where I answered to no one but myself. I waited until the following weekend to execute my plan. These final days living with Ryan while knowing the truth were surreal, like watching a play where I knew the ending but had to pretend suspense for the audience's benefit. Each morning, I kissed him goodbye as usual. Each evening, I listened to his work stories and responded appropriately, but internally, I was counting down the hours to liberation. Friday evening arrived, the moment I'd chosen for the confrontation. Ryan returned home in good spirits, mentioning plans to meet friends for drinks later. "Actually," I said calmly, "I was hoping we could stay in tonight. There's something we need to discuss." His expression shifted immediately to wariness. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," I assured him. "I just want to talk. Why don't you grab a drink first?" While he poured himself a whiskey, I connected my phone to our TV using screen sharing, a feature Ryan himself had installed for watching sports highlights. With a few taps, I had the photos ready but not yet displayed. "So what's this about?" he asked, settling onto the couch with his drink. I took a deep breath. "I want to talk about your golf weekend." Ryan nodded, taking a sip. "What about it?" "I was wondering if Jessica enjoyed golf as much as you did." His hand froze midair, glass halfway to his lips. "What are you talking about?" Instead of answering, I pressed play on my phone. The photos appeared on our large TV screen, crisp, undeniable images of Ryan and his dark-haired companion outside the hotel, his arm around her waist, kissing her goodbye. The color drained from Ryan's face. For several seconds he simply stared at the screen in silence. Then, predictably, his expression hardened into anger. "You followed me?" he demanded, setting his glass down with force. "What the hell, Amber? You're stalking me now?" "I didn't need to follow you," I replied evenly. "You left a digital trail a mile wide, hotel confirmation emails on your iPad, location tracking on your phone. For someone so concerned about privacy, you're remarkably careless." Ryan stood abruptly. "So you're spying on me, going through my private communications? That's illegal, you know that?" His attempt to shift blame was so transparent it almost made me laugh. "Is that really your concern right now? The legality of how I discovered your affair, not the affair itself?" "It's not," he began, then stopped, recalibrated. "Look, Jessica and it's complicated. It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I countered. "You've been lying to me for months, probably longer. The lake house wasn't the first time, was it?" He ran his hands through his hair, frustration evident. "This is exactly why I couldn't be honest with you. You're so controlling, so clingy. A man needs his freedom, Amber." "Freedom isn't the issue," I said. "Honesty is. You could have told me you wanted an open relationship. You could have broken up with me. Instead, you chose to lie, manipulate, and gaslight me into thinking I was crazy for suspecting anything." "I never said you were crazy," he protested. "You implied it at every turn. You made me doubt my own perceptions, my own worth. And for what? So you could have the comfort of a girlfriend waiting at home while you pursued other women." Ryan's defensive anger gave way to a calculating calm, a shift I recognized from previous conflicts. He moved toward me, voice softening. "I made mistakes, Amber. I'm not perfect. But neither are you. We can work through this, come out stronger. People overcome infidelity all the time." "This isn't just about infidelity," I explained. "It's about respect, honesty, and equality, none of which exist in our relationship." "That's not fair," he argued. "I've supported you, given you a beautiful home, introduced you to influential people, while consistently undermining my confidence, isolating me from my friends, and creating different rules for each of us." I stood firm. "I'm not interested in working through this, Ryan. I'm done." His expression darkened again. "You're not thinking clearly. You're emotional right now. Let's talk about this tomorrow when you've calmed down." "I'm perfectly calm," I assured him, "and I've had weeks to think about this. I've already removed my name from our lease. I've separated my finances. I'm leaving tonight." "Leaving?" he repeated, genuine shock replacing his manufactured concern. "You can't just leave." "Actually, I can, and I am." I gestured toward the hallway where Samantha and two other friends had just quietly entered, boxes in hand. Ryan hadn't heard them arrive during our confrontation. "My friends are here to help me move my things." Ryan stared at Samantha with open hostility. "So this is your doing? You've always been jealous of our relationship." "This is entirely my decision," I corrected him. "My friends are here because they support me, something you might not recognize." As my friends began efficiently packing my belongings following the inventory list I'd prepared in advance, Ryan cycled through every manipulation tactic in his arsenal. He pleaded, he accused, he threatened legal action over shared property. He reminded me how difficult the rental market was and how I'd never find a decent place on my own. When none of that worked, he turned to declarations of love and promises to change. Through it all, I remained steady, responding only when necessary and continuing to direct the moving process. The weeks of planning had given me strength, and seeing his desperation to maintain control only confirmed I was making the right choice. "You said you had the right to go anywhere and do anything," I reminded him as I prepared to leave. "Well, so do I, and I'm going somewhere without you." His face contorted with a mixture of anger and disbelief, the look of someone who couldn't comprehend that his carefully constructed system of control had failed. "This isn't over, Amber. You'll regret this." "No," I said with certainty, "I won't." Walking out that door with my essential belongings, my design equipment, personal mementos, clothes, and important documents felt like stepping into sunlight after years in shadow. The weight of constant vigilance, of measuring every word and action against Ryan's potential reactions, lifted from my shoulders. In Samantha's car, following our friends who carried the last of my possessions, I exhaled fully for what felt like the first time in 2 years. "You did it," Samantha said softly, glancing over at me. "I'm so proud of you, Amber." "I did it," I echoed, a mixture of disbelief and triumph washing over me. "I actually did it." Ryan called and texted relentlessly throughout that night and the following days. I responded only once, with a brief message: "Please don't contact me again. Any further communication will be through my lawyer." Then I blocked his number. Through mutual friends, I learned he was telling everyone I'd had a mental breakdown and overreacted to an innocent misunderstanding. Some believed him, others, who had witnessed his controlling behavior firsthand or experienced similar relationships themselves, saw through the facade. I didn't engage with the gossip or attempt to defend myself publicly. The truth was my shield, and freedom my reward. I had won not by defeating Ryan but by refusing to play his game any longer. 6 months after walking out of Ryan's apartment and his life, I stood in my new studio space, admiring the morning light streaming through industrial windows. The converted warehouse unit served as both my home and design studio, smaller than our shared apartment had been, but entirely mine. In the months following our separation, I had thrown myself into rebuilding not just my living situation, but my sense of self. My graphic design business, once diminished in my mind by Ryan's subtle criticisms, had flourished without that constant negative voice. I'd landed 2 major clients whose branding projects had challenged and energized me creatively. The walls of my studio showcased my own artwork pieces I'd created during late-night sessions when sleep eluded me, abstract explosions of color that charted my emotional journey from confinement to liberation. Ryan had always dismissed my personal art as hobby work, insisting I focus only on commercial projects that brought in money. Now I balance both, finding that my personal creative expression enhanced my professional work rather than detracting from it. My phone chimed with a message from Samantha. "Brunch today," the usual spot at 11. Our Sunday brunches had become a tradition again, along with monthly game nights with friends I'd neglected during my relationship with Ryan. Rebuilding these connections hadn't been instantaneous or easy. There had been awkward conversations, apologies for my absence, and explanations I'd struggled to articulate without sounding like a victim. But true friends had welcomed me back with understanding rather than judgment. "See you at 11, I texted back with a smile. The healing process hadn't been linear. In the immediate aftermath of leaving Ryan, I'd experienced unexpected grief alongside the relief, mourning not just the relationship I'd thought we had, but the future I'd imagined and the time I'd invested. Therapy had helped me navigate these complex emotions and understand the psychology behind manipulation and emotional abuse. It's common to miss aspects of controlling relationships, my therapist had explained during an early session. The highs can be very high, even when the lows are devastating, and the constant drama creates an addiction-like cycle that can be difficult to break. Understanding the pattern helped me resist the occasional urge to respond when Ryan found ways to contact me despite being blocked, sending messages through mutual acquaintances, or even once having flowers delivered to a client meeting. Each attempt displayed a fundamental misunderstanding of why I'd left. He seemed to believe grand gestures could win me back, never grasping that his behavior itself was the problem no gesture could fix. 3 months after our breakup, I received an unexpected email from a name I didn't recognize immediately: Jessica Martinez. The subject line read simply, "Thank you." The message was brief but powerful. "Amber, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm the woman from the hotel photographs. Ryan told me he was single when we met. When you sent me those photos and explained the situation, I ended things immediately. No woman deserves to be cheated on or lied to. I've since learned he's done this before with multiple women. Thank you for having the courage to reach out. You saved me from investing more time in someone who would have eventually treated me the same way he treated you." I hadn't expected my warning to Jessica to yield anything beyond perhaps helping another woman avoid pain. Her confirmation that Ryan's pattern extended beyond our relationship validated my decision in a way nothing else had. This wasn't about my trust issues or overreactions, this was who Ryan fundamentally was. The most challenging part of recovery had been learning to trust my own perceptions again. Ryan's gaslighting had created deep-seated doubts about my judgment and intuition. When a new acquaintance paid me a simple compliment, my first instinct was still to question their sincerity or look for hidden agendas. When a client expressed mild dissatisfaction with a design concept, I catastrophized it into complete professional failure. Rebuilding self-trust required daily practice. I began keeping a journal where I recorded events and my emotional responses without judgment. Over time, patterns emerged that helped me distinguish between legitimate concerns and trauma-based reactions. I learned to sit with uncomfortable feelings rather than immediately seeking external validation or dismissing my own experiences. Dating again remained a distant prospect. Friends occasionally suggested setups or encouraged me to try dating apps, but I valued my newfound independence too much to rush into another relationship. the freedom to make decisions without consultation, to spend my time exactly as I chose, to rediscover interests Ryan had dismissed as frivolous. These were precious gifts I wasn't ready to compromise. "You'll know when you're ready," Samantha had assured me, "and when you are, you'll recognize healthy dynamics because you've experienced the alternative." She was right. Though I couldn't yet imagine trusting someone enough to be vulnerable again, I had developed a crystal-clear awareness of relationship red flags. I would never again ignore love bombing followed by criticism, isolation from support networks, double standards, invasion of privacy justified as care, and the subtle erosion of independence. At brunch with Samantha that Sunday, seated at our favorite corner table with miasamas and Belgian waffles, I shared the news that Ryan had finally ceased his attempts at contact. "The last I heard, he's dating someone from his office," I said, surprised by my own indifference. "Apparently they're already living together." Samantha raised an eyebrow. "That was fast. Poor woman has no idea what she's in for." I thought about trying to warn her, I admitted, but then I realized it's not my responsibility to save everyone from Ryan. I can only hope she sees the signs sooner than I did. "You can't save someone who isn't ready to be saved," Samantha agreed. "So what's next for Amber Wilson, independent woman and design extraordinaire?" I smiled, considering the question. "I'm applying for that design fellowship I always talked about, the one Ryan said would be a waste of time because it doesn't pay well initially." "The one in Barcelona for 3 months?" Samantha's eyes widened. "That's fantastic." "I might not get it," I cautioned. "The competition is intense." "But you're applying. That's what matters." She raised her glass, "To new beginnings and old dreams resurrected." As we clinked glasses, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed in 6 months. The journey from controlled to controller of my own destiny hadn't been easy or straightforward. There had been moments of doubt, fear, and loneliness, but never once had I regretted walking away. Freedom, I had discovered, isn't about doing whatever you want without consequences, as Ryan had seemed to believe. It's about having the strength to create a life where respect flows in both directions, where boundaries are honored rather than challenged, where truth is valued over comfortable lies. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away, not in defeat, but in recognition of your own worth, not because you've failed, but because you finally understand that you deserve better than conditional love that comes with invisible chains. The journey of healing continues daily, each small victory building toward a fuller restoration of self. I don't know what the future holds, whether the fellowship will materialize, whether I'll eventually find a relationship built on mutual respect, or whether my path leads somewhere entirely unexpected. But for the first time in years, I face that uncertainty with excitement rather than anxiety, knowing that whatever comes next, I'll face it as my authentic self, no longer diminished by someone else's narrative about who I am or what I deserve. I hope my story resonates with anyone feeling trapped in similar circumstances. If you've ever questioned your worth because of someone else's treatment of you, please know you're not alone. If you've ever stayed in a relationship that dimmed your light rather than brightening it, know that there is life, beautiful, fulfilling life on the other side of leaving. Have you ever experienced double standards in a relationship? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story helped you in any way, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening. And remember, you deserve relationships that lift you higher, not ones that require you to make yourself smaller.